Hello everybody, my name is Ian Kirkpatrick. I'm an author, robot, and loin streamer, and today I am also Blake Beck. Gross, isn't it? From my book, Boom Boom Boom. Check it out, satire about Ukrainian and a girl from DC eventually when she is going to be his wife. You just watch. Oh, I'm so excited to work on the second version, the second book for that. It's gonna be so cute, but I'm getting off track now. Before we get started on today's video, because it's going to be a doozy, because I apparently like getting discussion going, please remember to like, share, and subscribe for more. Number 2, if you would like to be featured on the channel, I swear, not in a shit-talking video. Check out the links down in the description below. Number 1 is Lamai, which is the monthly prompt writing contest featured here on the channel. And then where I give you a prompt, you guys create a short story from that prompt or a segment of a story from that prompt. I read them on the channel and we just bask in the great creativity of the community. Number 2 is Pitch Fit, where if you have an indie book out there and you would like to find more readers, hopefully, possibly, maybe, submit your first chapter and your cover and they will be read here on the channel, and hopefully it'll help more people find that your book exists, because that is the bane of all of our existences, I swear. That and everybody's subjectivity towards commas, because that happens. So, there's that. And then number 3, if you would like to read any of my books and roast them, including this one, they are available at all of your favorite retailers, listed on my profile and in the links down below. And you can also request them at your public library. So thank you so much if you check them out. I would love to hear from you, even if not directly. I promise I won't cry. I don't cry, because I'm a robot. So let's jump into the topic for today. Previously, I did a video, I think it was last month or a month before that, where I talked about the weaponization of book reviews and how it's making readers and like messing up reader and author relationships because of trust issues, because like you'll have reviewers or readers review bomb something, then you'll have authors also overcompensating or compensating by having a bunch of like fake 5-star reviews on there in order to combat. And if you've got a bunch of fake 5-star reviews or 5-star reviews from people who haven't read the book, authors never complain, but if there's a bunch of 1-star reviews, then they do complain, and it's a whole mess of things. So there was another thing that came up, a discussion I saw or was adjacent to last month that was also talking about the weaponization of book reviews. Now, personally, I have a big issue. I take personal issue with weaponized book reviews for a couple of reasons, and I'll see if I can keep my thoughts straight enough to get out everything that I want to say. But before we get started really into the conversation of this, obviously everything that I'm about to say is just my opinion on it and some of the thoughts that I have around this. And the point of making this video is more to encourage discussion around this topic, because I think that there are a lot of issues that people really click to what their opinions are on it, and then you're not allowed to ever talk about those issues, and it just boils into a bigger issue where we could just be exchanging ideas and thoughts and feelings and not be taking it personally, but we can talk out our perspectives and share our ideas, especially when I'm looking this fabulous, am I right? This is the Fed fighter haircut right here. Today I'll be in a rebel with the nose ring, and so it's the perfect time to just share opinions. So there are no wrong opinions, unless you're for weaponized book reviews, then you're wrong. But I want to encourage everybody to have the discussions down below on anything that I'm about to bring up, anything that I neglect to bring up, and just our differences. And nobody is a villain here, but I want to have the conversations because I think they're interesting and fun to have. And when I do videos like this, I always get something different out of them. So with that said, a year or two ago, was it a year or two ago? I don't even remember. Somebody came into my DMs. It was whenever I read it's whenever I read Why Not Wichita. That's why. That's how I can place it. Because it's when I read Why Not Wichita for the loin stream that somebody popped into my DMs because I didn't have only praise for that book. You can go see my review on the channel here to get what my positive and critical thoughts on the book were. But at the time, the loin streamers and I were making memes. Manaya was making the best memes. And my being critical of the book from an author perspective brought the attention of a certain person into my DMs who wanted to do a movement, who was trying to create a movement on indie platforms with indie authors that was literally just support for the sake of supporting indies and being against the corporate machine. Now, I'm not a political activist in any sort. You'll see me often criticizing the politicization of things that shouldn't be political, because I think that storytelling should be a neutral space where we can just share our perspectives and our experiences, because that's what we're doing with books. We're creating brand new experiences or expressions of experiences that we have had in fictional and non-fictional settings. And it should technically be, like, for lack of better words, a safe space to explore these ideas and experiences and to work out what it is we're trying to say. Whether it was a negative experience or a positive experience that we had personally, because I've seen people attack nonfiction for people telling their stories and their thoughts of what they had at the time, and they're like, you're a terrible person, and they're like, it was a learning experience and I'm human, what do you want from me? So that's digressing. But so the whole point of the person came into my DMs and was like, hey, you were critical of this indie person. I think that we should band together and not ever be critical of other indies, because we should only be one-starring corporate people to take down the traditional publishers. And I said, bro, I'm not a political person. I'm not going to put one-star reviews on people because of their personal or political beliefs. I'm going to read a book fairly, and I'm going to talk about the book fairly. And this sort of rolled into an attempt of him trying to manipulate me. And when I kept asking him what it is he wanted me to do, what exactly was it that he wanted me to do, he would not answer, and it eventually ended. Caused drama in the little writing group that he had created, so I ducked out of that crap, and here we are. So that is not the only time that somebody has been like, hey, let's weaponize this and let's attack people for their political views on their books, and it happens quite constantly. You'll see when I talked about The Men, that those were weaponized book reviews, and that's the only reason I picked up that book. You'll see it with The Pawn and the Puppet were weaponized book reviews. I think Lightlark has a level of weaponized book reviews, though not political. That is more for kind of the marketing and lying around it. And there are so many reasons to not weaponize book reviews. One of them is because it makes your opinion look invalid when you're talking about a book, because you've proven that you're not necessarily going to give a product review or a book review when you're talking about a book. You're going to make it personal. And that I should put this here because I know it's going to come up at some point. You are free to use book reviews however you want. This just kind of complicates the marketplace and the sharing of book ideas because of this thing. Now, I'm not saying you can't rate books however you want. You can't rate authors poorly because you don't like their ideas. I'm just saying I see kind of these issues in here when we're talking about creativity and then making something about a personal affect or a personal thing. And so please don't take any of this as you can't do something, because I'm not trying to dictate or say what you can and can't do. I want everybody to have the freedom to do anything of their choosing within reason. I'm not trying to tell anybody how to do anything, use anything, be anything, how to use their book reviews or their voices, none of that. I just wanted to have this conversation to get it started and to maybe share ideas on why stuff is done a certain way, or to work out some of these issues. Because if you just go, well, I'm going to do this and screw you, then we really don't get anywhere with anything. And at least, even if we disagree, then we can have a better understanding of how we disagree or why we disagree, so we can approach book reviews differently or whatever. So look, I just tend to think that conversation helps us understand each other better, even when we disagree, and that's fine. So that said, on the issue of weaponized book reviews, I have 10 specific things that I wanted to bring up. And I am sorry that I lost that previous train of thought. I know I'm going to regret it when I get to editing this video and I'm like, what the frick? I was going to say something on that. So I'm just going to go into what my 10 points are of wanting to talk about, and then maybe that other stuff will come up, and if not, oh well. So number one, when book reviews, like on stuff like Goodreads, are weaponized, there's no venue for an author to respond to the accusations. So often when a review space for a book is weaponized, it's making personal claims about the author. And generally in those spaces, it is considered tacky or hostile for an author to be there. And I agree, because that is a reviewer's and a readers place, and they shouldn't feel like they have the eye of the author watching over them to make sure that they don't say anything naughty. But that also means that if somebody goes in there and starts passing around rumors or gossip or accusations onto the person, then there's no way for the author to respond to the accusations, especially if they're false, because it's in a reader's space where they are not necessarily supposed to be. So it creates this dichotomy, or this situation where the author is automatically assumed something, and if the author says anything out against those accusations, they will be dragged through the mud for responding to a review, even if that is not really a review, it's a personal attack or gossip or something in a reviewer space. Number two is that when you often have these claims against the author in the book review space, there's no evidence. It's just is people dogpiling onto somebody in the comments section. And I can talk about the pawn and the puppet specifically, and the men specifically, as two recent examples of people going in there and claiming that the author is transphobic or the author is this other thing without posting any evidence of anything. Many of them, on even the men, said they never read the book. So then you just end up with these claims and dogpiling, and the references for whether somebody is guilty or not of these slanderous claims is other people in the comments also saying the same thing. But there's no hearing, there's no the link to somebody doing something. They just maybe don't like an idea expressed in a book. And you can dislike an idea expressed in a book, like in The Men, where it had the trans women sucked up to infinity with the men. But that was part of the point, is it took the XYs of that book, and the people in the book even acknowledged that they didn't think the trans women should have gone there too, because they didn't consider the trans women to also be men, but whatever incredible deity existed to suck up the XYs also took that. Anyway, it's such a minute thing. But for the most part, if you look at those reviews, they just say transphobic, this person's transphobic, this person sucks. And then that gets news on channels, on websites, where it turned into like Laura Hugh, who is friends with the author of The Men, was also getting slammed. And there's rarely evidence given of something happening. And sometimes the evidence that is given is a character acting a certain way in a book, and authors cannot be held accountable or accused of the actions of their characters. Now, granted, there are people that do sort of autobiographical fiction where they take things in real life that happened to them or that they did do and insert it into fiction. But you can't go into fiction assuming that anything that is within the characters is something that the author believes. I've seen some really weird stuff with this. Like, obviously with Dead End Drive, it's a book about serial killers / murderers, whatever, psychopaths. And people will not assign me the guilt of the psychopathy of those characters. However, they will assign me the racist and or homophobic opinions of those characters. There is such a diverse number of characters in these books, and to pick a negative aspect that a character expresses and say that is in fact the author is so bizarre to me. How are we supposed to write diverse characters and diverse thinking and just people from different backgrounds if you're going to automatically assume whatever you want actually is an opinion or a thought or an action that belongs to the author instead of just leaving it within the characters? Now, I would even say if there is evidence in real life of an author doing something that is also within something of a character doing it, that's completely different, because you can just say, oh, look, we have physical evidence of this other thing as well. But something existing in a book does not mean that it's evidence that the author is guilty of anything. And this is also something that's sort of killing books and book discourse, in that good guy, I should say, protagonist characters are only allowed to act a certain way. And if they act just outside of what is considered acceptable or fashionable, then it's considered taboo. So you can only ever have perfect protagonists instead of damaged protagonists, because then it's considered offensive if there's actually any flaws or rudeness or reality to your protagonists. And this is just so bizarre to me. It's even stuff is just like a protagonist saying a rude word. It has gotten that far. So, short thing. Point number 2 was there's no evidence given for claims against authors made within reviews. And I'm not saying every single time, but I'm saying these are problems that pop up when you weaponize book reviews. So often there's no evidence against the author of something, and when there is accusations within book reviews, they're using characters acting a certain way within a book as evidence of the author truly believing or having done something. Number 3 is bombarded with people who don't or didn't read the book. Now, I don't know about you. When I go to look at book reviews, I usually do it in post. Not always, because I definitely go like, okay, I'm not even going to say that. I don't only go in post. But I do more specifically go and look at book reviews in post, because if I had a certain experience with a book, like if it was really bizarre, let's talk about it, his name is Augustin, I want to see if other people had the same experience I had or how they interpreted stuff differently. So I go into the book review section to see the experience and basically supplement a book club discussion. Now, if the book discussion area is full of people making personal attacks or offenses or accusations at the author, I'm getting no discussion about the book. And with specifically controversial books, you really get nothing out of book reviews when it's majority accusations against the author. And then that totally just destroys the space for talking for book discussion. And it's even more annoying when somebody is bombarding, when a mob is bombarding a book and they clearly say, I didn't read the book, but I'm going to drop this. There are places to trash talk authors like Twitter and Facebook and your personal blog and any number of other places to like drop your hatred. Book discussion areas to see what people think about a book just doesn't feel like the right venue for me. Number 4 is legitimate book reviews / discussions get buried. So this kind of goes with the above, whereas if you start review bombing people and weaponizing these book reviews, so what Goodreads does is if you can hit like on a book review and it pops it to the top as the most popular whatever. So this is one of the ways that I actually check to see if a book review is legitimate or being review bombed. So if you look at, which one did I think the Pawn and the Puppet is like this. If you go to the Pawn and the Puppet's page, you'll see that majority of the top reviews with the most likes are 1-star reviews. However, it has like a 4-star rating out of thousands, I think it's thousands, of book reviews and star ratings. So she's clearly appealing to her audience base, and the people who she is selling the book to really like it, but it's found a handful of people or a group of people that just want to destroy it, so they're all jumping on and getting those reviews to the top. This buries actual book discussions of the book in favor of personal attacks and boosting those personal attacks to the top, which is annoying. Number 5 is you show yourself as a tit-for-tat kind of person. So if you're willing to do a 1-star review because you don't like an author, then you're going to basically tell people that you're willing to give somebody a 4 or a 5-star review because you do like the author. And it has nothing to do with the quality of the book or the contents of the book or your enjoyability of the book. Again, this isn't dictating whether you could or should or the morality or ethics behind this. You're just sort of delegitimizing what the worth of your opinion is, at least in my opinion. If I know that you're going to use these things to do favors or to attack somebody you don't like, then I don't have any reason to really listen to what you think on this subject. Number 6, claims of character / story elements as author behavior. I already covered this in the no evidence section, so I'm just going to move on because the difference between these two was that sometimes you'll get claims of this person is a sexist or this person is an abuser, but they don't link to articles, they don't link to anything, they just leave vague accusations. Sometimes you can just leave vague accusations in that area, and I don't think it's a good way to be. Now, I know that a lot of people are abusers, and there's not evidence necessarily for those abuse, and that you might want to get other people to know about that abuse. But there are also so many people that get caught in the crosshairs of they're actually innocent, and their abusers are using that benefit of the doubt in order to victimize the abused harder. So personally, I require evidence in order to believe. And I know that's going to be different on a case-by-case basis because everybody's got a different approach based on their experiences and their beliefs and their logic and their needs. So just take that as you will. But when there's no evidence, I'm sorry, I can't take something seriously. And often these sorts of reviews weaponized reviews are filled with people just making an accusation with zero references to personal or public writings on what happened to that person. And I get wanting to warn people about terrible people, but also I read the Marquise de Sade, like, I bought that book. I've bought other books by terrible people, I'm sure. That's going to be a personal choice on whether or not you want to separate the author from the art or whatever, because let's face it, Hollywood is also full of pedophiles. And people still consume that content. So that's just a personal choice. Moving on from there before I get way too off topic and forget where I am again. Number 7 is competition sniping. Oh my gosh, I saw this with the men. Take this as a layman opinion from sitting on the outside and just kind of looking in at the situation, since I read both Manhunt and The Men and I looked at both of their reviews. And the author of Manhunt left a review on The Men, and they're both gender apocalypse style stories. When you weaponize book reviews, you can also end up with the situation of seeing somebody else wrote a book that is similar to yours, is in a similar genre as yours, and then weaponize your friends and go after somebody for them. And go after a book that may be competition in your genre. But you can end up doing things like just accusing behavior to snipe competition and drown somebody else's book out. And then you've got, all the personal affects that come from that, like certain people having their opportunities for awards taken away because you're sniping competition, whatever. It's not cool. And I've seen it happen. You got two magical girl werewolf stories. Just go and call that one sexist and get all of your friends and all of your fans via a newsletter to go and jump on that and to leave a bunch of comments on how that is sexist, and it's over. And your book is going to sell more. And you're championing that situation, that genre. And now you're ruining also someone else's life. So, Number 8, there's usually little nuance allowed in these conversations. So if you try to get into a lot of these conversations with the weaponized book review, though this is kind of just when it comes to political conversations or even psychological and moral and ethical conversations, period. Let's just be honest, is we in current year, we have lost a lot of the ability to have nuanced conversations, which is what I'm hoping that we can actually have in regards to this video. Again, not trying to tell anybody what to do or how to use their abilities or how to use their thoughts and opinions, but to allow us to have a nuanced conversation about sharing our perspectives and how we deal with things. Also check out my video on perspectives here if you want more on that. Not everybody is evil. But there's usually very little nuance, and often, like with The Pawn and the Puppet, you can go, I don't think this is transphobic, and then you get smacked with the transphobic slur as well, instead of being able to have a conversation and then just disagree on the outcome of what that conversation said. There's often very little defense. Not only can the author not respond to things, but there's often very little defense that can be had from the reviewers or the reader supporters or anybody, because no nuance is allowed in any of these situations. Often with weaponized book reviews, they are so emotionally high-powered, super-powered, that nobody wants to listen anyway. So you can't actually have a conversation and everybody just gets mad, and we've picked teams and oh well, it's ogre. Number 9 is mobbing opposing opinions in the comments, so it's not just about the author, but forcing others to believe you via bullying. Oh my gosh, I experienced, and just rudeness. Oh my gosh, I experienced this in freaking, his name was Augustine, Arcane Gateway. The author was trash talking these book reviewers / readers for months, and she was asked to knock it off by unrelated people because all she did was post insulting stuff. I shouldn't say all that she did. Much of what she did was post an insult a day to these vague readers. Sometimes she would name drop them. They don't even use the website, and call them idiots and make it personal and get other people to jump on them for people that don't even use the website. And then one of the followers from this website then went on to Goodreads and started harassing one of the book reviewers. You can go and see it in there. And this person was like saying, oh, you're afraid of rapists around every corner, you're crazy, blah, 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 blah. You end up with a turf battle between the people that didn't like a book or don't like an author and the people that do like the book or do like the author. And that wasn't even a weaponized book review. The response was weaponized. But it's harder to tell. And along with pushing it down. Actual book reviews and actual book discussions, once you get the mobbing of opinions going back and forth and people just arguing, those get pushed to the top because they look like more popular book reviews when it's really just people fighting. And the book discussion is lost and everybody just gets mad and emotional, and then like a week from after it all goes down, everybody is embarrassed because somebody was acting like a fool. Yeah. And then number 10, attacks on the author are not book reviews. Personal point of view style here, but I don't even like to say that an author's name in most of my book reviews if I can help it, for feeling like it's too direct. I know that there are so many really sassy book reviewers on Goodreads especially, and some people really make a persona for themselves out of being sassy, which totally fine. Talk about a book, but this book is trash is totally different from this person is trash. And I feel like making personality calls or human calls based on a book, or whether you like an idea or element in a book, are very different things. And again, it squashes that nuance because you're saying you're determining the values of a person based on an element of a story that you don't like, that may or may not be in future stories, that may or may not have been a singular event, that may or may not even be represented the way that you are being told it's represented if you didn't read the book. And now you're making claims on how a person is, and everybody is trash, and now their reputation is in the mud, and everybody is angry. Oh my God. Everybody is just so angry. It's because they're dead. Everything's an insult to a soul that's bankrupt. Hey. I try to be very careful when talking about contentious issues, so people know that I'm not trying to dictate, but just say, these are some things I noticed. Let's have a conversation about these things and like what we all think about them. And then somebody, man, it's the stuff that I think is going to be the most non-contentious ends up being contentious. Like, I didn't think Boom was going to be that big of a deal. I was like, this is going to be the most inconsequential book that I ever write, because who cares about satire and who cares about Ukraine? And then February of this year happened. And then I was like, oh, I'm going to just answer a couple of questions about my books and just talk about my books. And I say that I like men. And it goes to World War III. I'm like, oh, thank you. It's so easy to inflict or want to inflict or accidentally inflict damage upon somebody else. And books are such a personal thing that it can often even feel like a personal attack just for the book to be getting critiqued or to be getting some critical feedback. When even if you go, hey, this sentence structure is kind of like meh, or I might, and that's not even legitimate critique, because meh doesn't tell you what's wrong with it. But if you talk about this character emotional arc being possibly weak, or how to strengthen it, whatever the constant things that I do in my critiques as well, is those can all feel like personal attacks if you're so attached to the book, if you're emotionally attached to the book, like typically humans are, that then taking it to the next level and making a value judgment on the person based on the book is just going so far. And I think it's so easy to accidentally stop seeing people as people when you're looking at their books, because you feel like you're getting this emotional connection with the book, even if that emotional connection is, I freaking hate this book. But transferring that onto the author, I think, is very dangerous. And I think it takes us down a very dangerous path of not seeing people as people anymore, and actually victimizing others, because we have a number of cases where insulting a book became insulting an author, mobbing an author, making an author feel suicidal, like with the pawn and the puppet, like with the attack helicopter, like with, I think, Carve the Mark. The author was basically emotionally pushed into outing herself on some of her medical issues, and this happens a lot to make value judgments and dehumanize people based on an emotional experience with a book. I get it. Books will instill emotions in you, whether it's I love this book, I love this author, I want more of this, or I freaking hate this, I am so tortured, what the frick is this? But Lightlark is not her author, even if that is an author insert in there. It's not the same thing. And sometimes it feels like book reviews are being synonymously used for character reviews on people that other people don't know. So no one is saying here, or at least I'm not saying here, that you have to like an author or a book or support either. You can have your opinions and spread your opinions and share your opinions, and you can use book reviews however you want. I'm just trying to start a nuanced conversation about the weaponization of book reviews and how it hurts us all. You can hate an author for any reason or no reason at all, for any disagreement, for, oh, they supported this thing that I hate, or I think that they're a trash person, for whatever, but I don't think a book review place is the place to make a personal assessment of somebody or a personal accusation, because I also think it waters down whatever your accusation is because of the above things. There's often no way to double check on information, and it might feel like you're spreading information to try to warn people away from something, but personally, and I can only speak for me, I'm interested in your opinions, if I see negative attacks on an author down in the reviews, I'm actually more tempted to read the book, because I want to give the book a fair shot when the comments are not talking about the book. I've seen so much weaponization of book reviews that when I see accusations against the author, it really just makes me want to read the book to critique the book. Because books deserve to be legitimately read and critiqued, not have hit jobs for the authors in the reviews. But I know that it feels like it's the really easy way to start sharing what you know, because you're like, well, people are going to go to this page possibly if they're looking at this book, and so where else would they hear about this information that is personal, especially if somebody is a terrible person. But there are so many other places to talk about an author that changing a book review space into a gossip space against the author just feels counterintuitive to us all. But I get it. At least I get some opinions. I've heard some opinions. Like I said, I understand wanting to warn people about terrible people, but if you'd like to add more nuance to your opinions, let me know in the comments down below, because I gotta say it again, because every time I mention anything, I feel like I often get overlooked. I'm not trying to tell anybody how to use anything, but I just want to have a conversation about how we use these spaces and the weaponization of book reviews. And is it doing damage? Do you think it's doing damage to use these spaces for stuff that's not book related? Or how do you feel when you run into negative book reviews that are attacking the author? What are your thoughts? How do you tell whether a book review that is critical or weaponized, how do you tell if it's weaponized or if it's earnest or if the reviewer just hates the author? What are your thoughts on any of that or any adjacent subject? I would love to hear it in the comments down below. Thank you so much for your time, for watching the video, and I hope to see some I'm hoping for the best sorts of discussions down below. I've brought the dog a piece to ask for your mercy. Thank you so much for watching. Have a great weekend, and don't die.
Was that Wayland Cross in the trunk? Do you know, or is that something that's still being figured out?
The person in the trunk was not Wayland Cross.
Is he in trouble?
We don't know who did it, but as the owner of the car, the longer he's missing, the worse it looks for him.
Cross isn't a killer. For the last couple of years, the average number of murders in Baltimore has been over 300, and it's been going up. Mind you, that's only whatever the badges count as official murder, and believe me, there are people that don't count when they die. Wayland? If you're down here, tell me. I'm not talking to the badges, I've been looking for you. They found a body in your trunk. Why? Did you do that? To the left, plain black letters read along the wall. You walked in the corridor. Once that ends, you chose the dark is on the right. My vision goes blurry, flickers black and black and black for longer intervals until I can't see anything at all. I'm not screaming anymore, but my voice echoes back to me. Where the hell am I? You're dead, Josephine. Even smart people do stupid shit sometimes, right?